Okay. Wow. You know what? It seems that every time that I've done this, there's been something kind of technically that has kind of thrown us off, but that's okay. I want to begin right at the beginning. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for coming and joining me on this second Emblaser and um, laser diode Ask Me Anything live stream. We're going to call this one the Laser Cutters and Emblaser 2 Electric Boogaloo because this is the sequel to the one that we did a couple of weeks back. I'm hoping that everyone's joining us here has had a fantastic couple of weeks. We had a blast last time. I love being able to talk to everyone and see what's going on in the maker world. If you've got an Emblaser, if you've got a laser cutter and you're exploring this, this is definitely the place to be. So we're going to build upon exactly what happened last time. We're going to go and ask some questions. I can see there's a whole lot of people in the chat room, which is fantastic. We've got my good friend Josh Rothman. He's there. Michael's there from last week. Mike also turned up to say hello. He can't stay, but that's okay, Mike, because I've got a few questions that I'm going to answer for you guys. And Mike says not here, but everyone says they can hear. So that's great. So you know what? We've done some improvements to the live stream. I now have a chat window so you guys can see everything that you're saying. So we're going to track that. We're not going to be able to talk in live time, real time, but we are going to be able to do it that way. The loud is good. You're getting loud is good. I'm actually using my my speakers that's built into my laptop right now. So you know what? We persevere, and that's the great part about kind of doing anything. You know, when you have a little bit of a bump in the road, we keep moving. We keep making this happen, and that's what I love about you guys. I love about the equipment that I use and the projects. So let's jump straight into it. Let's see what's going on. First of all, I asked a whole lot of users to share some of the projects you've been making with the Emblaser 2. And you know what? I got some incredible examples which I want to share with you guys right now. So first off, we've got Jackson Redshaw, who's one of the users on Facebook. He sent us these. Well, these are the first two examples he sent. Obviously, the first one is assigned for Austin Mark. I can't read the third word, but I'm assuming that that's either made through cardboard or maybe some sort of wood. Maybe Jackson can actually let us know. So the window is so cool. Thank you so much, Josh. And then he also made a list we forget, a poppy, which is something that we're really familiar with here in Australia. The poppy is definitely used around the Anzac Memorial time, so I'm assuming Jackson might be an Australian, just like myself. So these are two incredible examples of things that have been made with the Emblaser 2. Moving on, we also have two other signs that Jackson sent in to share with all of us. So we've got an incredible sign. I'm assuming it's for a door, maybe for a teacher, for Mrs. Henderson, that's made out of wood. I would love to find out a little bit more about these projects. Maybe next live stream we can actually find out exactly what it is that Jackson used. But the apple is definitely a wood that's been varnished, and you can see all of that pop out. I mean, that's beautiful. And then we've got actually a sign, a building sign, the 2C next door sign, that to me looks like it's acrylic. And I know that's something that a lot of people have asked right now. Whether or not acrylic is something that we can use within the Emblaser kind of workflow. And you know what? They're definitely things that we can discuss and we can definitely delve into a little bit further on. Listen, at this point, I just wanted to take a moment before we jump into the questions. And if you're in the chat room, please sing out where you're from. And you know what? I love to be able to have a dialogue. This is the difference between making a video and making a live stream. I wouldn't put myself through all these nerves if it wasn't for the fact that we can get some interaction. The other thing is that if this is your first time here, or if this is, you're not a subscriber, you can help me out immensely by actually going to the bottom right of your screen. You'll see a little bit of a photo of me with the word subscribe underneath. If you click that, you actually will end up subscribing to my channel, which is full of laser cutting tips, 3D printing tips, and really is a document of my maker journey. So if you're interested in all of this, one of the things that you can do is subscribe. So if you could do that, that would help me out immensely. If you find as well that you learn something here that really changes your workflow and is of immense value, you can also use a super sticker in the chat, which gives us a little bit of a tip for making these videos. So all of that really allows me to spend more time on making content for you guys, and also working with the guys at Darkly Lab, so that we can, I don't have to really go out there and kind of panhandle to get materials and all the rest of it. So I just wanted to share that. Josh says he is from New York. Is there a material thickness limit to the machine? We are definitely going to be talking about that in a second, Josh. Mike is from Ripley in Brisbane. I hope you guys are safe. I hope Victorians are wise enough not to travel up to Brisbane in Queensland right now, where, as I said 2 weeks ago, we literally had a lockdown, and we were literally in the middle of a bloom of the COVID-19 epidemic, or pandemic, really. So, things don't look too grim here, but I know that Brisbane is now allowing a lot of people to come through. And Audrey is from Melbourne, my hometown, right? The home of Darkly Labs. So great, guys. I'm really glad that you're there. Again, I invite anyone who's watching the live stream right now, if you can jump into the chat, it is the coolest thing to be able to interact that way. So, like last time, I got a number of questions I was able to prep. Let's jump straight into it, and let's see what this is all going to be about. First question comes from Jackson. Jackson, who gave us the examples of all those that work. That's kind of cool. He actually asks, is there a way to test the material ignition alert function? And that's something that's actually built directly into the Emblaser 2. It's one of the standout features when it comes to the fail-safes with the Emblaser 2. So he actually asks, let's go back. Obviously, you shouldn't leave the machine running, but for some peace of mind, I'd like to test or hear the feature working. What's really interesting about that is that when Jackson actually asked that question, we actually got a follow-up question from someone else that actually asks, this is Oliver, he followed up by saying he had a small fire due to a typo a few days ago cutting cardboard, but the laser actually didn't stop. I didn't know about the feature, didn't know if it's its job or if cardboard fire spreads too fast, so he's extra alert now when he's working with this. So the alert feature, the material ignition feature of the Emblaser 2, I don't believe that it's part of the Emblaser core because it's not a closed system, is an incredible kind of fail-safe feature of that laser cutter. And originally when I thought about it, I was trying to work out, how does this activate? Is it smoke? Is it density? Is it heat? I spoke to the guys down at Darkly Labs today, and what actually triggers that function off on your laser cutter is actually the rise of heat within the body of the Emblaser 2. Now, when you start thinking about it, this means that you've actually got to have a fire, or you have to generate significant heat to actually have that function kick in. Now, alarm doesn't go off, but it does cut power immediately to the laser. So the idea is, if you can imagine that you've got some material in there, for whatever reason, it ignites. You've got a bit of a smoldering fire, or you've got a flame. The temperature rises, and the machine cuts power to the laser to actually help not continue that ignition. So it's kind of an interesting situation in that. There's no alarm that I know of, or maybe I should have asked that. But the material ignition feature in the Emblaser 2 is a kind of a last ditch to make sure that the machine is safe when you're using it. It's not something you should really rely on, and you should always be observing your laser cutter when it's actually using it, or when it's in operation. So you don't really want to have a fire. If you've got to a point where the material ignition sensor is actually tripped, you probably have a significant event happening in your laser cutter, and you may actually be in a situation where that may be the end of the laser cutter. I can imagine if it's enough heat like that, it would probably damage the laser cutter in the first place. I actually don't know of any laser cutters that have that feature in it, and again, that's one of the things that I absolutely love about the Emblaser 2. When it comes to being safe and working in a fail-safe environment, that is awesome that they have something like that built into it. Let me just check. Oh, Matthew in the chat room just told me he's also in Melbourne too, so he's a local. That's great to have you here, Matthew. You know what? Again, Melbourne, Australia, home of the Emblaser. It's a kind of a neat thing. So let's move on to the next question. we have, this comes from Matt. He goes, "Hey Gil, do you have any advice for cutting and engraving clear acrylic? I know to use the removable rubber spray paint, but can't get any depth to the engraving. Looking to make some edge lit LED signs." And you know what? That's a really incredible question, in the sense that this is something that comes up over and over and over again. People constantly ask me, how do you cut acrylic? How do you cut clear acrylic? And the answer to that is actually a little bit complicated. So you know what? We're going to break this question down. We're going to take a look at some of the physics behind how a diode laser works, and then hopefully you guys will understand why there are sometimes a few issues when it comes to using clear acrylic. So the first step I want to talk to you guys about is the light, or the spectrum of light, the spectrum of energy. And if you take a look at there, you have at the left-hand side gamma radiation. So unfortunately, this is not radiation that's going to turn you into the Hulk, but this is actually, there's 3 or 4 major forms of radiation: gamma, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, gamma. So on the left-hand side, we're right at the gamma spectrum. And if you go across, you have X-rays, and we know about X-rays. They are used in the medical field to see inside our bodies if we've actually injured ourselves. We have the ultraviolet spectrum, and then we have the visible light spectrum. Going on the other side, we have infrared, which again, a lot of people are really familiar with remote controls that use the infrared spectrum. We can't see that spectrum at all. Then we have radar, FM radio, television, shortwave, and AM. And you can see there, that is a huge spectrum of energy across there. So what we are actually using and working within is that visible light spectrum. And if we go to take a closer look inside that visible light spectrum, the wavelength that the Emblaser uses is actually 445 nanometers of light. And if you actually look into that, it's actually kind of like a very blue light, blue laser. It's visible, which means that it falls definitely in the visible light spectrum. And when you actually think about that, if you can see it, you can probably start putting these things together. If I can see the laser, well, you know what? And I'm shooting it through material that is clear, you can probably see where I'm going with this. So, oh, sorry, we'll keep talking about this a little bit more. So these lasers actually use very similar to like a laser pointer. They have more power, they have more wattage going through them. And the way they actually work is that at the focus area, they transmit all that energy into one point. And the idea with a laser is to burn through material that way. So the answer to that question was actually, Matt talks about using a removable rubber spray paint, which is something like Plasti Dip. And what ends up happening is that Plasti Dip spray paint gives a surface for the laser to focus upon and transmit all of its energy. But here's the problem. Once you've burnt off that rubberized layer, the power of the laser, the actual energy, passes straight through the clear perspex, and therefore you don't actually have a transmission point from the laser diode to the material. I think that makes sense. Please sing out in the chat room if I lost you guys. But just think of it as if you've got a torch. Your torch is your laser beam. If you shine it to a piece of wood, the light stops when it hits the wood. But if you shine that light beam through a piece of glass or a piece of perspex, it will go right through. So you'll see everything on the other side. And that basically is one of the reasons why there's so much discussion and so many issues about clear material in a diode laser. It doesn't matter if your diode laser is 5 watt like the Emblaser or 500 watt, you are still going to have that same issue, which is that for a piece of perspex that's clear or opaque, I mean, the darker it is, the better the transmission. You are definitely going to have that energy pass all the way through. If you happen to have a piece of perspex that's white, you are also going to have an issue because of the reflectiveness of the surface. So just like light, if you shine a light to a white surface, you are actually bouncing that energy off. So that happens to be kind of the real issue when it comes to these types of lasers and using clear acrylic, it's all about the wavelength. The CO2 laser uses a much higher wavelength, and therefore it is able to cut clear perspex. You will be able to engrave with Plastidip or some sort of rubberized coating. It won't go terribly deep, simply because once that coating is removed through the transferring of energy, once that's gone, it will pass all the way through. And that's something that everyone's trying to work out. How do we get that around that problem? But you know, it's a neat one. It's definitely one of those kind of questions that a lot of people ask, but don't actually understand the science behind it. This is also something that if you are going to cut lots and lots of clear perspex, a diode laser is not the machine you want to use. You want to go and look at maybe a CO2 laser, or even fiber lasers have issues that are not similar, but they definitely have issues when using clear material. So you know what? It's been really fun kind of actually understanding the science behind that question, and I hope that answers the question about clear perspex. If you want to do a lot of edge-lit graphics, go to a makerspace and use their CO2 laser. And one of the things that I love doing is actually laying out all my work in Lightburn before I actually go to a high-powered CO2 laser to cut perspex. It's definitely, it can save a lot of time and a lot of mucking around. Okay, let's move on. Let me just check. Hulk Smash says, Josh, in the chat room, I agree with you, man. I kind of wondered if I put my hand in the laser the very first time I was using it. I was wondering if I'd come out as a superhero. But it sounds and it looks like everyone kind of understood. So let's move on. If you do have questions in the chat room, if you do come up with questions, I know there's a little bit of a lag. No problems. Just put them in there. We can always come back and discuss them. Let's go on to question 4. This one is brought to you by Lauren. Lauren asks this, again, a very common question. I have problems with cutting in general. I finally got to cut 2mm balsa, but it won't seem to cut 2mm ply. 3mm balsa, let me say that again. And it won't let me cut 2mm ply. Also, I don't have a cut library. Lauren, I totally get where you're coming from in this question. It took me a little bit of time. There's a bit of a learning curve when it comes to using diode lasers. In fact, in the last live stream, I got some feedback from someone who caught it on the flip side, who started off working with the Emblaser for like 2 days and was asking some really simple questions. And by the end of it, he got incredibly frustrated and also told me that I was full of garbage. I hope he's continued working with the Emblaser, because you can do some incredible things with that machine, but it does have a bit of a learning curve. So let's discuss some of the things that come into factors with cutting material. So first of all, I want to talk to you guys about how a diode laser focuses. This again is something that was really interesting. The way a laser focuses is very similar to an hourglass shape. So if you can imagine that at the focal point, you have a convergence of the laser. This is kind of like the really sharp focus. And that's where all that energy we were talking about before goes into the smallest possible area. And that's exactly what you want when using your Emblaser. The great thing about that is that we can actually factor that out. So if you were to actually open up Lightburn, there are 2 settings that you really want to make sure that are critical. At the bottom of your cut layer window, you have both your support and you have your material setting. And the support setting is how high your material is off the base. Now, if you're using the mats that come standard, either with the Emblaser 2 or the Emblaser Core, they are 10mm high. So we know that they're 10mm. And then for the material, you actually want to measure the material and be able to put how thick that material is. So let's take a look over here. So, oh wow, there you go. I should have changed the card over earlier. 10mm high, and the thickness should be measured with a caliper so you can enter that material. What that will actually do is that will allow your machine to work out exactly where that kind of hourglass focus, that kind of point where the laser converges to transmit the energy within the beam at its optimum level. That's what you want. Now, if you happen to be out 1 mil or 2 or even more, you may be able to do multiple passes and not be able to get the penetration or the cutting action you want in your laser. And in fact, I see this all the time. Maybe for whatever reason someone hasn't measured the material or isn't aware of the support height. It only takes half a mil, or even more to be able to work an operation. And then the answer that a lot of people think about is I will do multiple passes. So definitely check those things out first. The other thing that I would love to bring to people's attention is to be able to make sure that your lens is clean. Cleaning your lens on your laser is, again, one of those things that I actually end up doing it almost every time I start a new process on my Emblaser. That means that there's nothing on the lens that's going to interfere with that transference of energy. And in fact, I have a video about how to clean the Emblaser, and I'm going to actually put it in the description below or in the card that'll be in the right-hand side once this live stream is over. Or if you're really eager to take a look at it, I have a bit.ly link on the card itself. I don't know how many times I've had panicked emails from people I've helped work with the Emblaser 2 that says, I don't understand what's going on. It was working yesterday. It's not working now. Those two things, which happen to fall into the category of user error, are definitely well worth keeping in mind when you're using your machine. Check the lens, clean it. Does not hurt at all by cleaning the lens and putting it back together. And once you've done it a few times, I can actually clean my lens in pretty much 30 seconds. Put it back in and I'm ready to go. And again, check that height. Be aware of that material support height, really important. And then the actual material thickness that you're using. Get yourself a caliper. I think I had that in that, in this. These electronic calipers, they're only a couple of dollars from Bunnings. Do not use a measuring tape or a ruler. They are always out. You want to make sure that your surface on your material is getting the maximum amount of energy transferred when it comes to the process. That's pretty much it. We're ripping through these. I'm checking the chat room. I haven't seen anyone write anything. Maybe just say a quick hello. I want to know you guys are still here. I know that we've definitely got some viewers, but I want to make sure that we have people in the chat room and you guys are actually hearing everything. So just wave out, say hey, or maybe it's my droning voice. Is that what's going on? You guys are asleep at 6 o'clock in the evening, or at this point it's 6:30. Let's see what's going on. We're actually coming up to the last question, and I want to be able to jump in and answer some of your questions too. So maybe before we go to the 5th question, I'm going to go to the chat room. Let's see if there are any questions here for anyone that's on the chat. I don't want to kind of neglect you guys because I prepared stuff before, but is there any questions from anyone else that might have something that they're working on, or a question when it comes to the Emblaser? Let's see. Hey, Audrey's still with us, which is great. It's great to be able to have these conversations one way or another. So I guess I actually should share with you guys something that I probably missed upon. I actually worked on something this week with the Emblaser as well. So let's jump to that. I don't know if I showed this to you before, but this is a Space Camp logo that I was working on this week using EVA foam. We had some questions during the week about using EVA foam as a source. So last year in December, I was able to go and live an incredible childhood dream and go to Space Camp, taking a whole bunch of students, and I was able to actually use that logo by using EVA kind of craft foam, putting it in the Emblaser, and I have a video coming out. In fact, it was supposed to be done by now, but I've been pretty busy with everything that's going on and also preparing this. So let's see, amateur questions from Josh in the chat room. I don't believe in amateur questions. I actually don't believe that there are any silly questions. I think they're all come about by people wanting to learn and wanting to explore. So Josh asks, amateur question, how does it not cut through the bottom of the bed of the machine? Great question, Josh. So there's two things that are going on there. The supports are actually a form of silicon rubber. and the silicon rubber can absorb a lot of heat before it actually starts to degrade. And on the bottom of the Emblaser too is actually aluminium that's coated with a black paint. So one of the things that's really interesting is you can remove the support mats, and you can actually etch in a grid. So if you wanted to put in a centimeter or millimeter grid on the bottom of your Emblaser, you can do that. It will actually remove the paint, but because it's metal, and because once that paint is removed, you've got a shiny surface, the energy is, again, transferred and it won't cut all the way through. So you're pretty safe with using the Emblaser, but it's a great question because if you use a high-powered laser that can cut through steel, well, you've got a problem if you're going to use something like that with a machine that has an aluminium base. Hey, Michael's still here. Thanks so much. Good to know that you're here. Let's jump in to Josh. If that answers your question, let me know. If it doesn't, that's okay too. We're going to move on to the fifth question, which is again another question that I love to be asked, and this is really specific to the Emblaser. Mike asks us, and I believe that's Mike who's in Brisbane. I cannot get the dim laser light to work when I'm doing a frame check or point check. Is there something that I haven't turned on? Mike, great question. This was something that I learned when I was working with the guys at Darkly Labs. I wasn't aware of this until I actually saw it, and I can understand your confusion because unless you've actually seen it work in the real world, it can be really, really confusing. What actually happens with the Emblaser is that when you arm the laser, a very small amount of energy, voltage, goes through the diode just to activate it and make sure that it is kind of turned on with a physical switch. And what that ends up doing is it ends up casting a tiny little dot out of the laser assembly that you can actually use to line up where the laser is. And I actually tried to do this earlier today and ran into a problem, and I'm going to share that with you now. But before I do that, I'm actually going to show you this video that came from my print and cut video. And you can see there is a little dot coming out of the laser, which I'm now using to jog the head across to be able to line it up with a mark that was printed on for alignment using a new feature in Lightburn. So one of the things that I realized, well, two things that you need to take into consideration is how much ambient light is in the room. The light being generated by the diode in this mode is extremely low. And that actually means that you're not able to see it if you've got sunlight going on. And my Emblaser happens to be right near a window. So when I wanted to do some video footage of this, of how to do it, you couldn't see anything. So that's why I'm using the footage in the video here. The other thing that you have to be aware of is that the light can only really be seen when it's only a few centimeters or maybe 10 millimeters off the surface itself. So what you want to do when you want to set up a laser like this is you want to arm the laser so that you can actually put that through. You want to move the assembly down to around 10 millimeters away from the surface of the work, and you also want to jog it around. And at that point, you'll actually see that little dot turn up. So, I mean, this is an absolute godsend when you're using something like print and cut. I love being able to see what's going on. I also like to be able to see by eye when I'm doing a frame to see if I can actually cut a part out without having to use, to see where it aligns on the material, so I can use a piece of material that I used before and I don't have to use a brand new one. So Mike from the Blue Mountains asked, so I hope Michael's still here. It's not the Michael that's in the chat room, that's okay. But those, I hope that actually helps you. The next time you're with your Emblaser, I usually lower my head about 30 centimeters from the home point. So in the vertical, I take it down 30 mil, and I find that I'm able to actually see that dot turn on when I've actually armed the machine and I've got some current going through the laser diode. So that it's as simple as that. And you know what? That, again, if you haven't done it before, it's not really simple. It's like, how do I do this thing? How do I get it to work? How do I get it to move? So you know what? I'm hoping that will actually answer your question and you'll be able to use some of the great features in Lightburn. I think we threw it out before, but they're the questions that were asked of me this week on when I mentioned that I was doing a second live stream. I'm going to open the floor to anyone who's got any questions or any comments about their process with the Emblaser, with diode lasers, maybe just lasers in general, or if you want to throw something out that you're working on that you want a little bit of, you're taking this opportunity to kind of let people know or work, we can definitely do that. I actually have a question that's going to come up. So Michael says, is there a shortcut on the Lightburn to rearrange the cut pieces to maximize the amount you can cut in a single piece? Does it have to be done manually? That is an incredible question. Like, it is incredible. In fact, I know you asked this, but I was trying to find it in the stream, and sorry, in the Facebook kind of comments. I apologize. I know that I looked at it and went, yeah, I've got an answer for that. Now, Lightburn itself doesn't have that feature. It's something that's been discussed. A few people have asked for it, but there is a piece of software that's free that will take your design and will move it around so that you can get the most out of a piece of material. I need to do a little bit of research because the name kind of skips my mind right now. I know that Dom from Darkly Labs has used that many different times. It's not a fast process. I remember when I brought in a design and then asked it to work around, it uses AI and it does take some time. So it's not something that you want to be using too quickly. Like if you've got a job that you need to get done really quickly, you don't really want to use that feature, only because it can take up to an hour to work out exactly the best way to use your material in the best way. But Lightburn at this time does not have that feature. It has been discussed and it has been requested by a number of people. So, Michael says, great, I will try that. Thanks, Gil, no problems. Definitely let me know how that goes. Let me see if you can see the dot and how that helps out. Matthew, yeah, you know what? The best thing you can do is you can jump onto Lightburn, and they actually have a whole forum where you can request features. That's probably the best way that you can be able to get that feature working within Lightburn. It'd be great to have it, absolutely. I know it'd be really cool to be able to do all your prep work out if you've got to cut multiple pieces. But at this point in time, I actually do it all by hand. What can you do? It's kind of what it is. So, not much else we can do. Cool. I'm kind of like, that's it for me. I don't know if I rushed through these questions or not. I was hoping that we'd be here for a little bit longer, but that's okay. You know what? I love to be able to help out and share the things that I learn. I didn't say it before. Well, I said it when there was no microphone on, so I just want to let you guys know that I'm not an employee of Darkly Labs. I'm just a guy who's super enthusiastic, and it happens to be my day job to help people with this technology, especially in the education sector. So I'm doing this because I love to be able to see people create things. I really believe creating all the things that you do, especially outside of work, when you're personally creating something, it's another form of communication. Because if you can give someone something, you're actually putting your imagination in the palm of their hand. And that's super cool. So I just wanted to clarify that. There was a question before whether or not I was actually working for Emblaser or sorry, the guys at Darkly Labs. No, I'm just super enthusiastic. And I've really found that there's a lot of people who love to be able to work on this subject themselves. Again, if you guys got a question, please throw it in there. If not, I'm going to kind of wrap this up a little bit. Whether you've got questions or even if you want to share what you're working on, I'd love to be able to hear that sort of thing. If you are, this is your first time to this live stream or even the first time to my channel, it would be absolutely cool if you could support the channel by hitting the subscribe down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That actually helps boost me in the sense that other people can find this sort of content. And the other thing is that if you guys have some, if you get something out of this, you want to support this, anything that I make off this channel is just going to be put into materials to continue making these videos and to be able to kind of troubleshoot some of the things that we're talking about. So whether or not it's applauding the video when this, or whether giving a super chat or a sticker live, those sort of things really, really help. Especially right now where I can't go into schools because schools are all locked down. COVID-19, Melbourne, I'm hoping we are not going to be locked down into our homes permanently. It's, you know, I'm sure that everyone wants to keep safe. In fact, I'm actually thinking about using some of the foam to try and make some sort of mask so that we can put layers of material and then actually hook it around our ears. Let's see what we can come up with. EVA foam is an incredible way to be able to make things quickly on a diode laser, but also something that is disposable. It's only a couple of dollars for material, and we can throw it away later on. Guys, it seems that that's it for me. It seems like that's it for the chat. I would love to see you guys in 2 weeks' time. I'm actually going to work really, really hard to get some of the people from Darkly Labs to have a conversation with me in here. If you want that to happen, this is definitely the time to speak up. Definitely throw it in the chat so people can see. Michael just said deep nest. That is it. It works quickly but reasonably if you proceed with the settings. That is correct. Michael just mentioned that piece of software that I was talking about. It was called Deep Nest. I'll put a link on it about it definitely in the description of this video. I've used it a couple of times, but it does take a bit of fiddling to get it to work quickly. I would love it for everyone who wants someone from Darkly Labs to come on this stream to just jump in chat and just go, yeah, I want to speak. I want to hear someone from Darkly Labs. That would be amazing so that I can actually go and show them that there are not only people interacting, people who really want them to come on board. And you can imagine, not everyone is willing to get in front of a camera like this. It can be kind of intimidating. Guys, it's been great. I've really enjoyed this session. I'm going to clip the front of it where there's no audio. I'm going to get that fixed up for the next one. It's funny, I got the chat working. I've got the chat working all in here, and the audio goes. It's always something. I've been doing some interesting work with this whole setup, so I think I must have hit a button. If you're in Australia, America, England, actually, if you're on the planet Earth, take care. Don't get sick. Be safe. Hug your family, and go create something that's amazing. If you are here and you're not here from the Facebook group, definitely check out the Emblaser group on Facebook. I hang out there. It's a great way to get in touch. Share your projects, share everything. And I just want to say, again, thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you guys, hopefully in 2 weeks' time, with your questions about the Emblaser 2. I'll see you guys real soon.